Für den Abschluss von Climactic Climate haben Galen Joseph Hunter und Tom Rowe den New Yorker Medienkünstler und Bastler Poff eingeladen. Der Künstler untersucht die Möglichkeiten, menschliche Aktivität in Information zu übertragen. In seinen aktuellen Projekten setzt sich Zoff intensiv mit dem Paradigma des Rundfunks und des Sendens sowie deren Einfluss auf die zeitgenössischen sozialen Netzwerke auseinander. Seine neue Radioarbeit, der Sun Dialogs, besteht aus Geschichten über die Sonne, basierend auf Daten der Sonnenaktivität, die von Satelliten und terrestrischen Messgeräten gesammelt wurden und mit Hilfe einer vom Künstler geschriebenen Software in Klänge transformiert wurden. Poff lässt Mythen und Sagen über die Kraft der Sonne und die Meinungen moderner Sonnenverehrer wie Umweltaktivisten einfließen. Die Erzählungen wurden fragmentiert und mit den Beobachtungsdaten neu gemischt. So entstand ein spielerischer Dialog, mit dem die hörbar gemachten Sonnendaten mit den Erzählungen interagieren. Zu Beginn von der Sun Dialogs erklärt Poff ganz genau, welche Klänge er welchen Sonnenaktivitäten zugeordnet hat.
The Sun Dialogs. The sun has been venerated and mythologized throughout recorded history. The ancient Egyptian god Ra piloted his boat across the sky every day, lofting a solar disk and led by two magical fish. The skies have been crowded with the boats and the chariots of other sun gods from the Americas, India, Greece, and Rome. The sun continues to inspire adoration, hope, and fear in more secular ways. Energy companies and environmentalists invest in its rays. Sunbathers push back against the dangers of UV exposure, and radio operators achieve long-distance communications due to the effects of solar weather on the Earth's atmosphere. In this program, you'll hear recorded stories about the sun, ancient and contemporary mythology from several cultures. I created software that uses data from satellites and ground-based sensors as a guide to automatically fragment the recordings and reassemble them. Each change you hear reflects a changing feature of the sun itself. The surface of the sun is called a photosphere. It's formed by erupting arcs of plasma shaped by unpredictable magnetic fields. Sunspots are dark areas of strong magnetism that appear and disappear during each solar rotation, which takes about 27 Earth days. The sun oscillates between periods of high and low sunspot activity, repeating about every 11 years. Sometimes, sunspots give rise to solar flares, which release massive bursts of radiation toward the Earth. These emissions can seriously influence Earth's magnetic field, causing geomagnetic storms that disrupt radio communication and harm the electric grid. The Sun Dialogs are primarily based on maps of the sun's magnetic fields from 2003 to 2014. During this period, the sun went from a peak of activity to a minimum and back again, so the sounds will follow this arc. I made a software synthesizer that scans through the map and generates a sound like this for each sunspot. A large sunspot causes an edit in the spoken narratives.
We're still...
In 1903, the Nobel...
Each Earth day is represented by a pulse like this. A solar rotation is represented by a drum, tuned to a multiple of the resonant frequency of the sun. Geomagnetic storms in our atmosphere control the volume of a low drone, another multiple of the sun's resonance. When I step back from it, I hear a dialogue between the myths and their makers, unique adventures of gods and mortals, conspiracy, rebirth, and self-help. The tales are diverse and contradictory, but each one strikes me as an attempt to bring the sun down to earth, to place a narrative frame around its impossible remoteness, and to hold it for a moment before it rises again.
To death as a result. She goes down into the underworld and is followed.
And I saw it gain
who very much in mythology goes down. It's completely dark. She speaks back with you. Just don't look back. And of course he does. He breaks off a fragment of
a lovely, many-coloured radiance, which soothed and gladdened the weary eyes and
Sat and which they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered nor buried.
Sort of female deities who then pursue him.
This was the god.
Thou givest thine agony as our life's worth, and makest it infinite, lest we have to deceive us, entice us, pervert us, and tries to enlist us to war.
Into grapes, and they stop and eat that and so forth. And eventually gets out to the exit and he's
of the true God, from his spirit
into a real foreshadowing of that glorious truth towards which the whole human race was yearning.
As he slept, the sun played him a trick. It was a mild winter's day. The bird skins of which the coat were made were still...
In 1903, the Nobel Prize was awarded to Danish physician Niels Feinsen.
His family is Amaterasu, who her brother, this Sunanu, causes horrendous offense to.
His arms and saw what happened. The sun was nearly sinking.
Long after he dies, he has a son named
Time, and in 1923,
and so the other families gather, and through this extraordinary dance and lewd songs and all sorts of things.
Reach up there, but I'll be revenged on you. Just wait and see.
Of a sun god trinity consisting of the sun,
which I have these amazing pictures of.
She is then back in this world, and the mirror becomes this great symbol.
When he told her about it, and what do you think?
And the disinfection and healing of
the other side and lay for 10 days more.
One of the earliest reports of aurora.
Sister, I have a plan to catch the sun in a noose. Find me some...
U2AMJ reported the northern lights were gone.
One of them. Isn't that amazing? Imagine that being a hospital today.
Planetary body, like so many other planetary bodies, but there's something divine about it. And that which is divine about it.
His sister thought of her hair. She cut enough from her head to make it
howl and roar.
He's actually better. He was just like, I'm loving this. Getting coffee in bed in the sun.
He who causes birth, that is, we are talking about the power of the sun to create the day.
Between California and Hawaii. About 0545 on November 8th, 2000.
They're always doing things, so I think they actually kind of put them to work. There was one where there's like all these women in rows.
Pray to the sun to give us supreme intelligence.
Time in the cold and darkness, but at last a faint light came into the sky.
Aurora flutter.
And again, they're healing from these devastating diseases.
Buddhi.
This is after a year. And this young girl had tuberculosis.
California working him. It progressed to the north.
Did this, he saw pictures in the flames and in the red coals, and that
logged him. Then farther west to KL7FZ in the BP51 grid square. Bob, K2DRH in grid square EN41, said, I made the mistake.
When the sun did not rise as usual, the animals could not tell what had happened.
The aurora was stronger than I've seen in quite a long time.
Kagaji, the raven, flapped his wings, and
the one who oversaw the building of the
then came back about 10 minutes later.
First Universal Church of the Sun God.
My best DX to the east. Best to the north was VE4DN.
For the winter, and the darker it was, the better he liked it. Wobble.
Starting at 2000 Zulu. This opening occurred while the big
The silver arrows with
Are the Sun God Trinity. The Father is waiting.
for at least two reasons. Number one, it followed yesterday's K8 event. Number two,
which of the animals will dare to cut the cord?
1000 local.
The sun, or incarnation, is the star, and
First picture, and this is after a year, and everything's totally cleared up.
Ishtar, pronounced Easter, is the Holy Ghost.
So at his clinic, he was doing this great healing.
Exile on that sea-girt shore increased the love of his own native place. Though Minos blocks escape by sea and
with the mark of the sun god in his wrists, and the symbol of the sun god
flew again with his eagle.
That the sun,
regnant of the air, and by that untried way is our escape.
The tree symbol later evolved into it
for 6 months,
and nature unrevealed. He fashioned quills and feathers
of a cross.
So there was an action of the sun that was able to
smite. It would have...
The circle represents the immortality.
He bound with thread the middle.
Qua, the dormouse, only groaned and turned over on his other side, and Coyote had a narrow escape from being mashed.
And he also was expressing that women are so
countenancing.
Him, said Coyote, getting up and shaking himself. I will run to the mountain.
Found that the best results were obtained
and others on a cross.
And eating nutrition.
Same thing.
They could hear Animiki coming. Boom.
Waved his great feathered wings with bird-like ease.
In the ear of the dormouse, the biggest beast on...
And sunlight. He didn't calculate calories. He wasn't looking...
I caution you to keep the middle
team and take heed, lest you lift up your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon,
the sun may scorch them, fly midway,
awake,
worship them, and serve them.
Some still get rickets, and many people experience...
It is you that
follow my safe guidance.
Deuteronomy 17:3. Who has gone and served?
And in the northern latitudes, by late...
Either the sun
would not have to eat so much, or work so hard to get it.
His gliding wings assumed a careful lead solicitously, as when the
cancer diagnosis. So,
to try the yielding
in March, or the doctor,
Queen of Heaven and the Holy Ghost.
The little boy had snared the sun.
Luke mentioned.
So,
beneath their flight, the fisherman, while casting his long rod,
hotter.
Alf, anti-cancer something. I can't remember where it's from. Some sun education.
Great heaps of...
They're riding up.
Upon the left, they
dermatologists.
Upon the beast with horns. On many waters mentioned in the
behind.
The mole no larger than an ordinary mouse.
Avoidance of the sun. The sun has become the...
Forsook his guide, and bold in...
And the tin horns.
That is what Coyote really meant. Coyote, the prairie wolf, is a cunning beast. Up to many...
And the fragrant wax that held his plumes, and the
tattoos, or to tattoo ourselves, or
to explain it, it is cancer of the pigment cells, and it can infiltrate the lymph. aggressively, and unfortunately it can be.
Now the blue sea, now called Icarian from the dead.
And basal cell carcinoma is the most common dangerous.
Which is a museum of pictures in Brussels.
He called again, and then he saw the east, dear Icarus, floating on the waves. And he began to rail and curse his art.
Yes. And king or opening a window or just walking dully along. Friendly, passionately waiting.
Most Japanese seem less than obsessed by the debate.
And I remind my sisters and brothers.
7. Meet an exceptionally long auroral
From science.
Most are probably even unaware of the arcane
Anyhow, in a corner.
secret part of the ceremony.
clouds, and both stations
The life on a torturous horse. Earth has been
of 2,200 kilometers.
Which is for the formal enthronement of the
for instance, the universe. In the beginning, our Earth
Meter aurora, with only a sloping dipole.
go around its
focusing on a rite that may have some of its origin.
was not an important failure. Been slowing down since then. Now it completes one the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing.
5SW.
The world is looking on. Emperor Akihito, who is 56 years old, took office last year after
To diminish, the Earth is going to slow
clearing. It was very dark. They're incensed.
in a certain direction, created many things. When you
$15 million in public. The
you leave it,
excuse me, and oh, sorry, and Kaifu was asked if the emperor did indeed.
Earth is going to do that. That's what
Mr. Ishihari
and
that it was time to have a meeting.
and slow up to a point its mass. Slow any further, then it will
Leave the issue open. Objecting to the religious nature of the ceremony.
in a clockwise fashion, and thousands of years back.
Several Shinto shrines, while rightists ceremony features the emperor
purported to have said that when ignorance approaches tonight,
shrine late at night, and then going into an inner. Well, I am his monk.
but Arthur
Chamber is
and they will.
what happens next is an act of thanksgiving
And they will find that the sun did. Changes here in a row.
consumes rice, millet, and rice wine, and offers other food items to the spirit of Amaterasu.
A good order.
And then when we first advance,
And so in that
when possum God lies on the
list
there were the sun guards that as one knows
from which birds come.
said the ensign sneaked up.
Open to the doors.
Currency, the sex tail, and was off to get back to the other animals. Well, pretty soon he got feeling hot.
They're compelled to move about something false on us.
That no one really knows the answers to these questions because the ceremony is completely secret and may be guided
Under the brightness of the sky. But the deficit, the suffering that we are having, the need fire
does not appear there. A place whose south, north, west, and east land is unknown. For of gods or ox, there being no brightness there. And as for every place, because no sunlight is, buzzard came and buzzard said to produce the falcon on the standard. It is on her southeastern soul that possum is to and sits in the third eye called the pineal gland, which is exactly in the center of description of note. Her right arm is on the southwestern side, the left on the southeastern side. Her head is on the western horizon. Her mouth is in the west. The cycle of the sun. The winged hub of the to receive sunlight so that it goes to the Church of Santa Prisca in Rome, referring to Mithras saving men, where the Vatican St. Peter Basilica stands today. Here we have the incarnated, the sun god Mithras, from life in the duat. Is it they went to bed, and when they got up the next morning, Coyote said to Sun, I want to go with you when you go today. Sun did not primeval state. Then he is developed into the great god, the winged disc. When this god sails, receives, couldn't even see the sky. Words that go to heaven, like Alexander. They had no son. Son quickly told inside the chords for a fever. God, a god of light whose birth was celebrated on winter solstice, December 25th. Like all incarnation, it stays open after he sails inside her, so that these sailing stars may enter after him and come forth after him, where they course is to their locales. He could burn up the whole world down below, but Coyote begged and simple and pure in the embrace of his father Osiris. Then his father lives as he becomes a foot, and the world almost burned up before Sun could get it back. From then on, he later returned to Sun's house by way of the south. In 6 BC, are you beginning to see what the marks of the beast of? Then he parts the humans. Another Slavic sun god. She gets. He cried very incarnations. There's no hope. These stars come forth after on a Buddha idol. About that, was said on their headgear, effective again through his father Osiris. her little legs, crawls back through the door, and his physical strength develop. They told him to get on the Trinity worshiper. The sun has grown and grown and grown till there's this Norwegian sun god Trinity cross. And he has developed Easter. I fly too so that I can make that sound. Know that he will be killed. Eat, and why so many of us are suddenly there is light. He could make wings, and all the animals
is very complete.
7 annuals fallen halfway to earth forever. And thanks, because grandmothers
As a creator. In that way, he's replacing.
they have life and was killed.
At midday, is replacing Vishnu.
Worship. This they give sunset Saturday. Exodus 35:3 explains
He is the one who created.
on the Sabbath day, going punishment by creatures incarnate. If the majority of the present
To be called Abhijit, undefeated.
before the true Messiah Yeshua's Sabbath, the which light, heat, life. I would see people wearing crosses, sunset,
That is good.
Hellenistic Passover, and do no gain. Praise God in the sun and in the stars. Rest on the 7th day of Passover.
And then what happens is, we take the other attributes of
Who are, so to speak, the intercessors. Holy water. They will see monks and nuns
to control planet Earth. We shall call him Agni.
on that day. They say there is but one heaven. Messianic assemblies of Yeshua themselves. Leviticus 23:21. Many Christian denominations use it.
Surya.
They did not have forbidden celibate orders of monks, nuns, and priests. They prayed and baptized. Well, fire is derived from the sun. The sea is the sweat of earth, or the fluid of...
How long do you think life will survive?
Forehead. They didn't dream of using holy water or first day of the week during Pentecost.
They are all going round and round in perfect clockwork motion. They don't take breaks, they are doing their dharma.
Within us. 6 BC, not Christmas or any other pagan holiday. He eventually made the
For in respect to them which seek only to amplify themselves, we are born and live
empire into the pagan universal sun god trees and
by Surya.
for we are
So the three names of the sun
or figurines do not bring the cursed
and Indra.
an abomination
in installments of
like it. You shall utterly detest it and utterly abhor it.
You now know
During the heyday of that TV,
someday there will be cloudy weather. Your compulsion in life may
portal duct opened up to the east.
that no harm. Whenever you miss some days,
I take a chart which has got 12 houses and 12 mansions.
Found at Washington, D.C. This makes you wonder what sun god trinity the United States is.
On Long Path on 2 successive days. 2 days later, it was my turn. Willem heard me 90 watt into a vertical reasonably well, giving me a 419 report, but I was not able to complete it.
you'll be at 15 minutes if you're
Sun god, spiritually, physically, and financially. Salem, the place where the followers of the true God had once lived, the ones who had converted Abraham, its residents had fallen away and began to follow an incarnation of the sun god, who people claimed had risen from the dead as the promised Messiah.
don't continue to use old glasses. But only one thing, request here. Don't tell your eye expert.
Most of these openings go unnoticed.
Need asleep.
Movement. Nature unrevealed.
Tree. And then it became some form of a
Crept close to his ear and howled with
Able to fortify the muscles.
Straws of unequal slants.
sun god. The sound of the
the dormouse only groaned and turned over.
derived from the sound that represents the
We're also discovering
Flat like a corn.
His son Icarus, with smiling countenance,
are both the mark and name.
their children.
chased the feathers ruffled by the shifting breeze.
To the mountain cave of
The yellow wax, and by
his voice is even more terrible than
On a cross,
Eating nutritious meals.
they could hear Animiki
floating on the winnowed air.
Better to sunlight than mineral deficient.
which you shall dispossess, served there
He had fashioned
on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. Deuteronomy 4:9.
It's simply wholesome meals and sunlight.
Animiki the thunder.
and if they soar too high,
But unfortunately, diseases of darkness still exist.
Feel driven to worship them.
Leap again. Now, said Coyote to the Dormouse,
his flashing brand, but follow my safe guidance.
if he burned one of us, there would be little left.
Who has
And in the northern latitudes, by late winter, when our vitamin D reserves are very much depleted,
To get it. The Dormouse was a stupid.
influenza, dental cavities,
As when the bird leads forth her tender young from
He was the biggest animal.
yielding air.
an Easter and was known as the goddess of love,
queen of...
Way to the hill where the little boy had snared the sun.
His wings looked backward.
Testament. Notice the solar wheel tattoo.
From, a health.
Wingless drake.
Soon it began to burn till all the upper part...
His eyes, astonished, might observe them on the wing.
They are riding upon many waters. This reminds you of the
cord with his teeth and
Juno's sacred isle.
It's weary about
ultimate in the book of Revelation.
No larger than an ordinary mouse. What he became
proud of his success.
The sun.
Our peoples and multitudes, nations and tongues. And the tin horns which you saw
rising up.
Coyote.
And shall make her desolate and naked. And shall
up to many
and the fragrant wax that held his plumes. And the heat increasing melted the soft,
perhaps scarring purposely made on our bodies.
Pigment cells, and it
with no more feathers to sustain his flight. Name, his voice was smothered in the
squamous cell carcinoma and basal cell carcinoma are non-melanomas, and basal cell carcinoma.
And one of them. And where are you? And what will appear?
And while it is true that our skin can be vulnerable to the sun,
how well he understood
in the same area can create visible damage.
Body on an island shore, now called a carrier.
Or just walking dully along.
Most Japanese seem less than obsessed by the debate.
And I remind my sisters
until becomes a deity.
It's about the same as sporadic E-clouds.
follow. What is happening?
Most aurora
is its innocent mind on a tree.
The data reaches for the formal an extraordinary clash of interpretations amongst
slowing down since then. Now it
the enthronement into state occasion.
IED in FN 31.
3 hours, 56 minutes,
and the world is looking on. Emperor Akihito
and sailed calmly on.
Homa on the 19th.
It's the end of Japan.
to a point will not be able to support any more decrease in
The beginning, Akihito renounced his divine
on this planet. God has created
ceremony, but also spent